deported to a third country. A global hunger monitor determined has stated that Gaza City and surrounding areas are officially suffering from famine, and it will likely spread. The Integrated Food Security Phase Classification System said 514,000 people, close to a quarter of Palestinians in Gaza, are experiencing famine, with the number due to rise to 641,000 by the end of September. It is the first time the IPC has recorded famine outside of Africa, and the global group predicted that famine conditions would spread to the central and southern areas of Deir al-Balah and Khan Yunis by the end of next month. Earlier, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said the Gaza famine was a man-made disaster, a moral indictment, and a failure of humanity itself. He even called for an immediate ceasefire, the release of all hostages still held by Hamas, and unfettered humanitarian access. Meanwhile, let's listen into what the Director of Office of Emergencies and Resilience, Rain Paulson, had to say about the prevailing situation in Gaza.
Currently, famine, IPC Phase 5, exists in Gaza Governorate, and across the Gaza Strip as a whole, over 500,000 people are facing catastrophic conditions. And another just over 1 million people, some 54% of the population, are facing what's classified as emergency phase 4. By the end of September this year, September 2025, famine is projected to further expand to the governorates of Deir al-Balah and Khan Yunis. And during this period, a third of the population of the Gaza Strip, nearly 641,000 people, are expected to face catastrophic.
Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump has raised concerns on the situation in Gaza. He has also called for an immediate end to the Gaza war. Let's listen in.
The situation has to end. It's extortion, and it has to end. And we'll see what happens. I actually think they're safer in many ways if you went in and you really went in fast and you did it. And people can't forget October 7th, remember that.
Professor Rohan Gunaratna is joining us as an international security expert for this discussion from Singapore. Thank you, Professor Rohan Gunaratna, for joining us. Good to see you. Now, thank you. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has called Gaza's famine a man-made disaster and a failure of humanity. What do you think? What does this statement reveal about these broader geopolitical dynamics that play in Gaza and this humanitarian crisis in Gaza?
Asuma, there is a humanitarian crisis in Gaza because Hamas has taken control of the food distribution network. Hamas has not only taken control of the food supplies that were sent to Gaza by road, but also food that was airdropped by UAE, by Jordan, and by a number of other countries. So what is important for the world to understand is that there is enough food in Gaza that has been provided by the international community and also by Israel. But Hamas has created this famine by holding on to these food supplies. And that is why it is so important for the international community to understand the necessity to dismantle Hamas so that people can have access to food. If Hamas is not dismantled, the threat of terrorism and extremism will continue. And of course, the threat of famine will become very real if there is no strategic thinking, if there is no right thinking of what is happening in Gaza. This will be a persistent problem.
And what role do you think global powers still can play, like the US or maybe Europe, or can play in facilitating ceasefire?
There are three things that needs to be done. One is that there must be a very accurate assessment of what is happening, because we are seeing that due to fake news, significant amount of misinformation and disinformation, and especially online falsehoods, is sending a wrong message. Second is that the global powers must be involved in the conflict in Gaza at this point, because there is a very active terrorist group that conducted a very brutal attack in 2023 that is still dictating to the world as to what is happening in Gaza. This group must be dismantled. Third is that humanitarian assistance and supplies should be distributed in a very creative way to reach the people, so that there will be no famine and there will be no starvation. For this to be done, there needs to be a system where the aid reaches the ordinary civilians and not the hands of Hamas.
Thank you very much, Professor Rohan Gunaratna, for joining us and sharing your insight all the way from Singapore. Thank you.